Hey, this is Notser, and I want to talk about aiming in World of Warships. I've developed it over 2 or 3 years, community as well. I just want to share all the secrets, so let's get started. First secret, turn on stuff in the control scheme. Turn on, all of these are on by default for me. I turn off the hit indicator only when I'm locked on a target. Collision avoidance, of course I turn it off. I need to pull those tactical Notsers. If you don't need to, obviously it's up to you. And then alternative interface. This is really the most important one for aiming. Turn that on. Crosshair is set to dynamic. Dynamic is scaled to 30 knots. You can also do a static crosshair, which is scaled to 20 by default. And what are these, numbers indicating? Well, I'm glad you asked. So they are indicating the time to target. And conveniently, we get the time to target in the alternative battle interface by default on the screen. Distance to target, your personal concealment in real time. It blooms out if you decide to fire a gun. Also, on the minimap, turn on all these things. They just help too much. Ship name, range numerical, last value. Last known position, hydroacoustic and or radar. Aircraft, if you have a secondary build. Detectability by air, detectability by sea. All of those incredibly important. But the most important thing is that you pay attention to what the minimap is telling you right now. Look at the minimap. See that little circle donut that is drawn on the minimap and is moving back and forth? That is a real-time minimap indicator for your crosshair's 3D position. So if I target that buoy is apparently in this exact position on the minimap. Ship, island, corner, that is the precise location on the minimap. We can use that information. We can incorporate it into our shot and better aim at a target. Also, note that the target indicates the direction it's headed. These two were added, I think, 3 to 5 patches ago, and they are wonderful for maintaining a consistent shot. So how do you maintain a consistent shot incorporating these two additions to the game? This is what was not on the previous video because it didn't exist. So high explosive armor piercing, high explosive superstructure, bow and stern, avoid the waterline. AP, basically the opposite, go for the waterline. If you can't pin the waterline, top of the hull, bow and stern if you're something like a DD and you have a low penetrating armor piercing, but you still have an armor piercing shell that does a ton of damage. Best example of that, the Germans. Z-52 would love to armor pin your bow and stern broadside. So just keep that in mind and be careful. But as we're looking at the ship, there's a circle drawn around it, indicating that it's my target. There's also a direction line indicating that the direction the ship's headed. Obviously, it's not heading anywhere right now. It's stationary, but we can pretend like it's moving forward, and we can pretend it's moving forward 8 seconds away from us. So if we assume that the ship is full speed 8 seconds away from us, we would want to draw out that aim roughly about right there, okay? And the reason being, 8 tick marks, 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second, 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 7 seconds, 8 seconds. 8 seconds or so, this is where the shell should intersect with the ship. If he's going perfectly 30 knots, if he's going faster or slower, that would indicate the shell would be either more to the center of the ship or more forward of the ship. You have to gauge the movement of the target. There are mods for this. I do it by default with the vanilla game. Not as easy, but it's just as viable. If you use the ship, the smoke, and also his friendlies, if there's anyone that's sailing parallel or close to him, it'll give away the speed of either one of those ships pretty easily. So we draw out the shot, 8 seconds or so. We want the shell to intersect at least at the guns, but we want it to definitely intersect most of that ship. And you could argue probably the best way to aim, if you know the ship's going 30 knots, is directly center, plus or minus a couple seconds, whether he's going slow or fast. Now this direction indicator changes space in real time. as the ship is maneuvering. You will see the line just slowly rotate left or right, and that is a really great tool to always keep the direction of the ship sailing into your shot. I always try and look at the ship, decide whether he is turning away or turning towards me, and then I will disperse, I will depress the gun or increase the elevation based on his maneuvering. And with this circle that's drawn on every ship whenever they're selected, you can better understand how consistent the 3D space exists. Note that I'm sort of trying to draw a circle around my cursor around the circle that's drawn on the minimap, and if you look at the way it's drawn in 3D space, it's sort of an oval. Because obviously we're looking at a plane, a 3D plane, and it is not flat. It's definitely not flat. So, with that in mind, as you draw out, you can elevate or depress based on where you're aiming. Either waterline, and note the waterline, it's basically directly center of the ship. As the circle fits inside the other circle, you draw it out, 3 or 4 seconds, pretty much in the center. If you aim for the super, though, look at where it's aiming on the ship. It's on the back half of the ship, always the back half, because you're always trying to elevate the gun so it hits the superstructure. Keep that in mind. As a high explosive shell at range, you want to fire at the superstructure because the waterline's not going to be a viable option, most cases. As you're firing at the superstructure, you are aiming behind the ship, really. And if you recognize that positioning, you can incorporate that into even long-range shots. Now, one other thing that you need to know: the scout aircraft. The scout aircraft is an option on a lot of ships. It extends the main battery firing range by 20%, which is great, but it also changes the camera position. So note the camera position, pretty flat. Now the camera position is elevated. You can see behind islands better. You can also look down at the water and be a little bit more precise with your aiming. Incorporate the scout aircraft into a more precise or a more concealed shot. You need to make this shot, it's camping Worcester. He's firing from behind the island, and you want to shoot behind the island. Scout aircraft, great for that. And it goes exactly where you think it goes. Well, at range, though, the scout aircraft is a different style camera. How can I use the scout aircraft as effectively as the base camera? You can incorporate direction aiming and that little crosshair indicator always in every shot. It's a nice verification that your scout aircraft's aiming at the target. This is the same aim as before. Aiming at the target. This is the same aiming as before, and I'm leading so the shell will elevate into the super. But this is a completely different perspective. How can you verify it so easily? Because the minimap. The minimap is a universal verification. It's always the same plane of existence. It's always indicating the same information. So one would assume if I can hit a shot and verify the minimap position in a regular camera angle, I could totally do the exact same thing with my scout. That's what people are doing now. And that's how I have improved my scout aircraft aiming as well. See, nothing changes except the perspective, and that can throw people off and be confusing. But if you incorporate the minimap, the direction of the ship, and the crosshair indicator, any shot is possible. Literally any shot in the game is possible. So I hope that this was helpful for everyone. High explosive, you're looking for fires, you're looking to damage targets. Note that the targets take damage and the hull starts blacking. Each target has 4 sections, and then it has an overarching section. The overarching section has I don't know, what was the number? 80% of the health, and then each section has 40%. Obviously 4 sections, 40, that's bigger than 100%. Yeah, that's the idea. You want to try and aim at sections that are undamaged so each salvo is more effective and more damaging. Now note, most of our shells failed to pin. We hit the 50 millimeter at the waterline for the Moskva, right? If we aim at the top of the hull and the top of the bow, we should do more damage to the shot. Sorry about that a little bit. We did. So, top of the hull, bow and stern, top of the superstructure for high explosive, waterline for armor piercing. Waterline, bow and stern, waterline, or the top of the hull. If you're a DD and you're trying to fire at a battleship, waterline midship, probably not a good idea. You want to look for the lowest armor that you can do damage to, and do damage to it. But don't spend too much time considering. You got to keep up the rate of fire. Get into practice. Incorporate this aiming into your playstyle, and you will be super successful. I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys, if you have any questions, leave it in the comments. I'd be glad to answer them. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.